Welcome to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. Doing business in life with a purpose, serving others and achieving success. I'm your host, Steve Ramona, and we created this show for you, the audience, because we want everyone, not just some of you, everyone to be motivated, inspired, and educated to learn how to do business and live life to make an impact in the world. How will you serve today, and what impact will you create today? Very important. You do that, you'll see some great things happening. And as I always start my show, impact is what this next guest, he's incredible. He's got that English accent, but he's in the Carolinas, so that's okay. We love him still. I love the accent. I want to borrow it from him. But we've talked before, and what I really love about Nick, my guest, is he's got quotes, but he's got simple things that you can do to really change your life and business and just be a game changer, and they won't take a lot to do. Well, with that big setup, Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve. Wonderful to be here. I'm excited to get stuck in here. I got to say as well, before we jump in, relationships is the core of business and really of everything. And that's where we should lean for everything that we do is relationships, the people we have in our lives. And when I first met you, I mean, let's be honest, our business is knowing that, and our business is people. So we're good at that. We lean into that. We practice it. Now, that said, when you meet someone, there's already a level of baseline chemistry and connection. So I want to let you know that I felt that with you immediately, and I feel like we could have talked for hours when we first connected. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for doing what you do and being who you are.
Thanks for the kind words, and I agree totally. I even said in the green room, we better get this show started. We'll never do a show. We'll just keep talking, and we'll probably record that. And it's interesting. You went in a direction that I love. Servant hearts, what it tells people is we're in the people asset business, right, Nick? We don't have people, no matter what we do, we're not going to be successful, like I said in the beginning, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And even if you are, if you could get to that point, you wouldn't appreciate or enjoy it, because we need other people around us to, if something great happens in your life, what's the first thing you want to do? You want to go and share it with someone that's close to you, because you want to amplify it, magnify it. And without those other people, those relationships, like, success isn't really what it could be. And right. As you said, probably couldn't get to it anyway. And so, yeah, right, is everything.
And I brought that up because it leads to your bio, and I was reading it, and mentors. And Tony Robbins is one of your mentors, which people, of course, know that name, and he's mentored thousands, if not millions, of people. How important was that, the mentoring from his group, from Tony and his group?
Yeah, very important. That was really the bridge between my corporate leadership, working in banking, finance experience for 20 years, to bringing that to what I do now, and the psychology, the mindset, the why do people do the things that they do part. And because you've got the science of achievement, which is all that leadership part, like the skills and the strategy, and then the art of achievement, which is that people side, the psychology. Why do people do the things that they do? And that's that bridge that I got from working with Tony and being a Tony Robbins coach for a long time, working with hundreds of his clients, that allowed me to move over and to do what I love to do now.
You brought people up again, and I think this is going to come up through our conversation today, because, again, it's so important, and I'll keep bringing it up. But that leads to this interesting question. Why did, and I think a lot of people have been part of this question, why did it take so long to figure out a direction in your career?
My goodness. And it keeps coming up again and again and again. Yeah. So as I'm thinking about that, it's just, it takes a long time to figure it out. Then also, it's never done, because there's always a newer direction. I think about my journey, and when I lived in Asia, I lived in the Philippines for a few years, and that was when I first started to really think about, what do I want to do when I grow up? And for me, the observation is that I started working at a young age, right out of high school, 16 years old, and just got on a train. It was something that I was pretty good at. I enjoyed it, paid well. I got exposed to things. I learned things, kept going. And it conceivably could have gone forever. Mm-hmm. And there's certain pieces where either it was just inherent in me, where it wasn't good. It wasn't quite what I wanted, and I hit some thresholds, or the situation in the environment that there's often thresholds, catalysts in our life, which push us to that next level. And that happens to all of us in different ways, because, you know, there's many things happen in this world. And I think I realized that in order to keep making the jumps and the leaps that we owe ourselves and people around us, our businesses, frankly, the world, we have to be very intentional about what we're doing and create those moments for ourselves. And so I would say, if I think about that, all those years working in banking, being in the Philippines, finally having a little bit of time to think, actually, what do I want? What do I want? Because that is the question that it comes down to. And most people can't answer that question. They'll tell you what they don't want. I got to share this because just last week, so this time last week was Friday as we record this. It was Friday last week. I had a Zoom call with a friend of mine, an old colleague of mine, someone that I worked with when I was 2021, 22, working in a bank in London. And I met him my first day in there, and he was just a year older than me. But he's still at the same bank and has done many jobs since then, very successful, great guy. Like, and we hadn't talked for 7 years. We're straight in there and connecting, you know, one of those types of relationships where it's just like we haven't missed a beat. But, you know, he reflected to me, he said, he said, still now I couldn't tell you what I really want. And so in some senses, he's a victim of his success, Steve, where he kept getting opportunities. He's good at what he does. He creates good relationships, and people kept saying, hey, come here, come do this. Like, and so he never had that space. He never had the urgency. He never had the push to actually ask himself from reality. And that's really scary. And so that's why this question is important to me. Why did it take so long? Because oftentimes you don't get the space to. And it's hard to, when things are bad, when things are in a place you don't want them to be, it's easy to say goodbye to that and see something else. Take a leap, take an opportunity. I'm mixing different stories here, but a client of mine this week, just so many things popping up in my mind. A client of mine this week, who's just about to turn 30 this weekend, super successful in what he does. Only been he is a sales VP, he has 2 businesses himself. He's been working for 8 years, and he said, if I could tell myself 8 years ago, the guy that just left college, where I would be now, I'd be amazed. The amount of leaps he's made along the way, it's so cool. And he said, like, it's amazing to think about that. And then where might I be in the next 8 to 10 years? And I thought, interesting here, because when we leave college, it's a natural one of those environmental pieces that's outside of us that says, okay, now go to push for that next level. Because everything changes around you. You're kind of forced to go to that next place. But often for business owners, there's a place where you get forced into, you start going along, and you get to a level that's comfortable. So you're successful on paper, like ticking boxes. That's when it's much more challenging. Why? Because you've got something that's good. And even if you know that there's something that's great out there, it's much more challenging to go for because you've got to say goodbye to the good in order to get to that great. And that's why most people don't go to that X level where they really know that they deep down, they know they can and they want.
That's so well said. And on a side note, he said what he's going to do when he grows up. He's only 25 years old, so he's got a lot growing up to do, Nick. So he still hasn't come kidding, but I love that phrase because we're always trying to figure out when we grow up. But what is really cool, I just took from that was, if I'm a business owner, let's make it successful and good. And if I want to pivot or change direction, I could do that. So it motivates me to go, hey, I'm doing $1 million. I want to do 5 to 10 million. If this other opportunity comes in, I could easily jump into that, where you're saying if you're not doing well, you're struggling, it's hard to make that pivot, correct?
Absolutely. And in that example, I think there's so much depth in it. And I said it's just this week that came up. But you know, if you first starting out and to zero, he said his first pay was 30,000, right? And then look at it now, and he's easily 10x where that is. And when he was at 30, to get to that 10x version, like 300,000 plus, whatever it is now, it feels like it's a million miles away, but yet you've got the proof that it happened because you're in that spot. And so from 300,000 to 3 million also seems a million miles away, but it's just numbers and leverage. And so if you're in that business, to your point that you're at 1 million, you're like, wow, like, you know, that's good. Like, I'm $1 million. Like, most businesses don't make it this far. I've done great. Whilst all those things are true, and you should look at that and measure backwards based on where you were, it's the same principles that will get you to the next level, but you've got to play the game in a different way because the game changes as you go through due to functions of scale. But it's the same piece. You just need different leverage.
Nick's coaching me right now. I am taking notes, and this is what a coach does. Practical, simple, but action steps. So let's get into coaching a little bit more and use your expert knowledge. So somebody comes to you and says, hey, you changed direction. You figured out, you're trying to figure out they're trying to figure out the direction. You've done it. What are some tips you would tell that person that wants to change direction in their career?
Yeah, we talked about simplicity before we started here,
Yeah.
and we touched on it a little bit. Simplicity comes from clarity, creating clarity, and clarity is what you need in order to move forward, right? The only thing that really stops us taking the next step is that we're not sure. Even if intellectually it makes sense, there's something emotionally that often holds us back. It's like, well, what if it goes wrong? And so we're always looking for more clarity, even if it doesn't feel like, even if it feels like it's clear. The way I think about it is those old standard definition TVs. I remember going around my friend's house once, and their parents had, I guess I was 12, 13, I don't know how I was. First time I'd seen a TV that was like hanging on the wall. It was a 40-inch, which seemed huge at the time, hanging on the wall. It would come out and you can watch it, and it had HD. It's like, that's amazing. And then that's amazing enough to see the HD. What I noticed was the real contrast, Steve, was when you go back to watch an SD, especially, growing up in England and watch a lot of football, going to watch football, soccer on an SD TV, when you've seen it on a HD TV, you're like, I can't watch this. Because what seemed clear before, now you know that there's something different. Now you can see it's not clear. You can't see it going forward, you can only see it backwards. I think Steve Jobs said you can only see the breadcrumbs looking backwards. Same sort of thing. And it doesn't stop at HD. There's, we've got 4K now, and there's like a 16K coming on top of that, something like, there's always more clarity to be had. And so if you find yourself that you're not moving towards the thing that you want, it's always a lack of clarity. It's always a lack of clarity. And so just dig a bit deeper, okay, I'm at 5 million, 1 million, I want to get to 5 million in your example. Okay, well, and oftentimes the number is such a great thing to think about but it's just a proxy. It's a placeholder for what you really want. Why do you want to get to 5 million? What does that mean to you? What does it going to give you? Like, why are you called to do that? Is this something for the business itself? Do you love the product, the service? Is it something you must deliver for your family? Is it just who you think you are? And everyone's got a slightly different flavor of that. But the clarity around what is it that you're trying to create and why you're trying to create that is the starting point. You need an anchor in the ground. Like, you need a vision to go to. And then once we have that, it's just a case of reverse engineering it and really understand it. And then through that process, of course, what happens is that people's beliefs pop up. I was in a program last week, and I'm, as a coach, I'm always getting coached, right? Just can't get enough. I'm in different groups here and there, masterminds, and loads of different things. And a guy was talking about his program that he was trying to put it out there, and he was sending out emails and ways to get people to put their hands up to say, yeah, I'm interested in this. And all his beliefs were just kind of popping out on this call, because he's saying, it doesn't, I don't know if that really suits my audience, and some of the feedback I got wasn't really that helpful. And it's like, how many times should I do this? How many times should I drive people crazy? And that was the soundbite, Steve. He thought that, that was his belief. It just popped to the surface. He thought that by asking or letting his audience know about his new products, that some part of it was like, I don't want to drive them crazy. And so what does that say? It says that he doesn't actually believe in his product or his service, or at least he's got conflicting beliefs. And so it's look, if you really believe in what you're doing, you want to get out there and you want to pound the streets, sing it from the rooftops. You must have, to your ideal client, of course, it's not for everyone necessarily, but you must have the thing I've got, because I believe in it so much. Even if you don't know it, I'm committed to giving you this and working with you and exchanging value on it, because I know how important it is. And so that's the process. That's some of the systems of it, some of the strategy of it. Of course, the art is dependent on where people are, but really the crux is understanding those things.
It's masterful, because it happens with offers too, their price point. Oh, I can't, I'm I can't go 2,500. Same thing. They're conflicting, it's a lot of money. Do you bring value? Right. And I know you coach this because we talked about it.
Right.
That's a huge thing. Then you got to go back to your coach, or go to Coach Nick and say, hey, that's too much. Well, let's, like you said, dive deeper. What is going on here? Because I've seen coaches and other people with offers, and they've gone from 2,000 to 5,000. They got more clients.
Yep.
Crazy, huh?
Absolutely.
So the challenge, I wrote challenge down with direction, but besides challenge, decision making. I'm big on decision making. How important is that for the direction that you want to go?
Decision making.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the important thing about decision making for me, Steve, and I'm sure you get this because you just brought it up, because it's not it's not about the decision that you make. What's important is that you make decisions. That's what's most important about decisions. Like I'll tell you a personal story about this. My parents some years ago, they're still living in England, and they're getting up there in age, and my brother is still living there, and he does a great job, supporting them, and they look after each other. And some years ago, they decided that they wanted to split up. They wanted to sell the house that they're in and split up and go their separate ways. And I'm talking 5-10 years ago. And me and my brother supported that, and we said, okay, well, look, how do you want us to help you? My dad was like, I need to get this house together, ready to sell, and it might take 3-6 months to do that, and maybe we'll do it in the spring and clean this out, and then we'll be ready to sell. And of course, I can see all these barriers that he's putting up to the thing he wants, right? It's like, so I said, well, let me help see if I can shine some light on it, right? Because it's no good me trying to tell you something, right? It's like sometimes with kids, you tell them something and they won't listen, but they go to school and the teacher tells them the same thing and they'll do it straight away, right? Because it's the different relationship. And so I said, I'm going to bring a real estate professional around, just look at the house, see what they say. And they said, there's no point painting this, doing anything, just put it on the market as it is. It's good to go. Like you're not going to really make any difference. It's not worth doing anything else to it. So they did. They pretty much put it on the market immediately, put it up for a high asking price. And within a week, they got exactly what they wanted to get. That's like, well, that's fantastic. And then the next day they called me both together, and they don't really do that. And they called me and I said, oh, this is interesting. They said, we decided we're going to turn the offer down. Oh, what that? Okay. That's your prerogative. What's, it's not what we want. And we're out. And so what I took from that, Steve, is that they didn't actually make the decision to sell the house. They made a decision to explore selling the house. That's the power of decisions. And maybe a year through that whole process. But the awareness, you've got to be precise, you've got to be aware, you've got to be clear about what you're saying to yourself in the language of what things actually mean. Yeah. And I don't think that was intentional on their behalf by any means, but going through that process at the end, it's like, oh, okay, good. And so that's how we can speed up life. And so a big part of what I do as coaches is that I work as a coach, I work with smart people, right? People have already successful as business owners, leaders in their life, leaders in their community, in their family that are doing great things. And so it's not often about figuring out something they don't know, but I mean, there's always plenty of beliefs that you don't have. You can't see yourself. A jar cannot see its own label, right? So you always need that feedback. But oftentimes it's a case of just compressing time, Steve, making things go faster, because that's one thing that none of us are going to get any more of.
And that's great, because you're right. Time is a huge value. And I love the story about your parents, and it's a personal, so it's not as big, but let's extrapolate that to a business. Oh, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and spend millions of dollars on machines, and then get up to the point to make the check and pay it. And you say, I'm going to cancel the order. That's a lot of time wasted, and potential growth that they could have. It's such a great story. Now let's go back to challenge. Challenges in business are all over. It's just, you get into business, just know you're going to have it. But I want to ask you, in a challenge with a business, what scares you?
Yeah, it's like you get into life, challenges are all over, right?
Yeah.
It's like everything's a risk. I like the old Jim Rohn quote, if you remember him.
Oh, yeah.
He said, everything's a risk. Whatever you do is a risk. I'll tell you how risky life is. You won't get out of it alive. It's like,
that's a great quote.
We're always looking, it's always challenges, right? But the idea is to always upgrade your challenges, get them better and better, right? So that's the baseline mindset around that, because the other word you might use for challenges is problems. But I won't use that language, but we could do, and we could say that, if you're trying to get rid of problems, you're trying to remove all problems, that's a game that you can't win. The only people that don't have problems, dead people. So be glad that you have problems, and let's just make them challenges and make them, the goal is just to make them better, like a higher level challenge each time. But as you say, tie that into, okay, what's the biggest, what's the challenge? What's the thing that perhaps you think about you can't surmount? What's the thing that scares you? You know, what's the thing that scares you the most? Is the something that for me it's been pretty recent, and I'm big on sharing and being vulnerable in any place I possibly can. You know, is that even though I've been coaching for a long time and I built a sizable business which I'm very proud of, it's taken me until really in less than the last year to figure out who I can serve best at the moment. And that scared me in that process of, it's not a new thing for someone to say, get clear about who you want to work with, who's your ideal client, who's your avatar, who's the people you want to work with, and that sort of type of language around it. But it just took me such a long time and to really get focused on it. And it scared me to say, because it scared me to say, I don't work with other people. This is who I work with, right? So if I'd said, because I know what I do, I can help lots and lots of people. But if you also say, what can help lots and lots of people, you're saying you help no one, right? You're having other people choose for you. And it's kind of like people when they say they're busy. Busy is just being lazy. It's meaning you just can't get clear about what's the most important thing. So you're just going to say I'm busy. And so I was being lazy. In a sense, I was being lazy because I was scared that if I said that these are the people I want to work with the most, everyone else would be like, okay, fine. And then what if those people I said that I want to work with most didn't want to work with me? That was what scared me the most. And just like anything, Steve, often it's just the fear itself. That's the thing that you're afraid of. And I got to tell you, it's been really amazing, the journey I've been on that last year to have that clarity about who I work with. And it doesn't mean, so, you know, here's the thing that catches it. It doesn't mean that you won't work with other people. It just means you have a direction. You're creating, you have the clarity. You're the buyer. You're the thing that's moving forward to get the thing that you want, where you know you can add the most value and have the most impact.
What you just said scares me. Because it's serious. I had to make big changes and grow, you know, podcast is growing, and it's hard because I changed my schedule and shortened it. My wife, I don't talk to all these people, but talking to the right people in fewer numbers are better than talking to the masses, the right people.
That's right. And you can get in a huge 10x, 100x, 1000x disproportionate leverage and value by doing that. Right. Yeah. There's no doubt that there's a lot of value by doing repetition. Repetition's the mother of skill, and to create some depth and iterative performance and get better at what you do. But in order to get the real leverage, you got to take some of that and go, okay, I'm just focused here. What if I pour everything? And hey, again, let me be honest again. I've been on a lot of podcasts, Steve. You've interviewed a lot of people, and I used to go on podcasts and just show up. I used to just show up because I believe that I can show up and I can go toe to toe with the person there. I can have fun with it. Like, I'm good. And I think that's fine in some senses, but I'm restricting the value that I can add because I don't know enough about the person or the podcast. And I'm restricting the value that I can create because of the same thing. And so it's spend some time. You know, this morning I was at the gym running. I listened to some more of your podcasts, right? Just for that, what can I pick up just a little bit more, such that I can add just a little bit more to Steve and his audience. And sometimes, like, there may be nothing specific, but I can sit on my certainty even more, knowing that fact that, like, that's my thought around it, right? I'm not going to go on 100 podcasts in a week. I'm going to go on the ones that resonate with me, right?
Right.
And where I know I can add value.
Exactly. You can pick and choose. Yeah, I love that because I've done the same thing. I kind of got lazy. I got good. People say, hey, you're really good. You kind of let your laurels get you. Like, now I do my backup. I've known you, but I look and find information. I met a Roy Firestone, who was ESPN sports journalist, 5,000 interviews. He said, Steve, I never had a question written down. I just flowed. Just that one tip. And the tips you're giving, like the tip I got from Roy, is just blown me up. You know, the growth and scaling is unbelievable. And we're right out of time here. This is crazy. I just looked at the clock like we've been talking for over 20 minutes, which is great. But I do love this question. What did you screw up so much that you don't talk about? This is vulnerability, so I'm putting you on the spot a little bit.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it should be asked because it's a good question, because it's vulnerable and because it puts you out there. I think about, what comes to mind is back when I was working in banking. And I'm totally fine with it now because it's such a long ago. It's all part of my journey. But I remember being in a place where I was in my early 20s, working on the trading floor, and I did love it. I did love overall. I left banking because I didn't love it that I could get to that next level. But that piece of it, like I love those early days of the energy and being on the trading floor and working hard and fast, and that urgency. It fitted for where I was in my early 20s. But I thought I wanted to be on a trading desk because I was never quite on the trading desk doing the trading. I was a support role. I had led a bunch of different teams, real wide variety. But I knew I was close enough to those guys that I could have got on the trading floor. On the trading floor, I could have got as a trader. I could have got there. And other guys would say, like, you should talk to them like that. You could definitely get in there, and like that would be great. I was like, yeah, that would be great. I was just so damn scared. I was so damn scared. It took me 2 or 3 years to eventually pluck up the courage to just the head trader. His name was Stuart McGrath, Stuart McGuire, and to actually send him an email. I didn't even go talk to him, even though I'd see him like multiple times a day, or at least multiple times a week. I just sent him an email saying, Stuart, I'd love to work for you. I think I'd be a great addition and add lots of value, or I could do a great job for you. Send. And that took me like 2 or 3 years to pluck up the courage to do that. And like, it seemed, now thinking back on it, it's just like, man, night and day of the approach that I would take. But I think it's all part of the journey. But I could have been there and never did. It just never happened. And I end up staying there for a while, working in a different place, and then eventually leaving to go traveling. And that's when I left London after that anyway. But it's a story that I very, very infrequently tell. So thank you for that question.
No, and thank you for the answer, because what you just, and audience, this is the huge lesson. And I taught the business, ask. What's the worst thing is do when you ask? Took you time, but we're all different. We're fallible humans. But in business, you have to ask. Ask people to work with you. Ask people to buy from you. Ask people to partner with, whatever that ask is. And I always say, now I had a tough time for 20 years with this. I'm not going to ask Nick to be on, not now, but I say, what people think about you is none of your business. Right. That's what a phrase I learned. And you go and ask, what's the worst thing what happens to you? I ask you to be on the show. You go, nope, I'm too busy. I'm not in. Great. Move on. You didn't do it, but you move on to the next person. And we talk about people and having the right person. Let's just use America. There's 360 million people in America. Let's cut 100 million, I don't know the numbers, that are young people under 18. There's over 200 million people. Steve and Nick do not need 200 million people in their business to be successful. So I'll leave it at that because we are running out of time. I want to thank you for being on. A blessing as I knew it would be. But how could people get a hold of you? Because I know they're going to want to ask questions.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Steve. So much stuff there. I definitely could keep going for a long, long time. Yeah. The best way to get me right now is just on LinkedIn. So I'm Nicholas Davies on LinkedIn. But I can supply some links and stuff if you want that as well. But yeah, I'm on a couple of the other socials, but that's a good place to see me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and I'll put the information in the chat so you'll have that in the chat. You're not in the Zoom with us. See, even the experts can make mistakes. In the show notes, let's get that right. But I'm going to ask, as I always ask audience, whoever's listening now or on podcast or YouTube, here's the power of what we're doing here, the podcast and YouTube. You go forwards and backwards, forwards and backwards. Go back and listen to this 1, 2, 3, or 4 times. There's so many golden nuggets Coach Nick just gave you for free that could change your life. And they could be $1 million tips. Here's the other thing I ask when I put it out on YouTube or in my podcast, comment. I'll get it. I'll send it to Nick. If you say, hey, you were talking about people as an asset, Nick, tell me more. And I'll get you information. You can reach out and learn more. He's very successful, but he's got a servant's heart because he wants to be able to help you. And that's what a servant's heart does. And I want to remind you, my TV show, Together We Serve, it's Fridays, 2 p.m. Pacific and 5 p.m. Eastern every Friday. Don't forget podcast swag. You can get your Doing Business with a Servant's Heart hoodie, hat, t-shirt, whatever you want. Got it all there for you. And last but not least, I want to thank you all for listening to this incredible podcast. And I look forward to hearing or seeing you on the next podcast. Thank you all.